My uncle said it in Spanish, low and casual, like he was talking about the weather. My nephew doesn't understand any of this. He's getting older. Just put the deed in my name and my daughter's. He'll sign wherever I tell him. I was sitting 3 feet away. I heard every word. My name is Earl Caldwell. I'm 58 years old, retired engineer from Cincinnati, Ohio. And that sentence, spoken by the man I trusted more than anyone still living, is the one that changed everything. Let me start at the beginning. I spent 30 years working for the Ohio Department of Transportation. Bridges, overpasses, interchange design. Not the kind of work people write songs about, but solid work. The kind where you drive somewhere years later and think, I built that. I know that grade, that curve, that poor date. When I retired at 56, I wasn't sure what came next. My wife Carol had passed 2 years before that, lung cancer. 18 months from diagnosis to the end. Our 2 kids were grown and spread out, one in Colorado, one in Georgia. The house in Cincinnati felt like it belonged to someone else, so I rattled around in it for a while. Watched too much TV, went fishing by myself on weekends. Started going to bed earlier and earlier because there was no good reason to stay up. Then one night I downloaded a Spanish language app on my phone. No particular reason. I'd seen an ad, clicked on it. Figured I'd try a few lessons and forget about it. That was 16 months before the afternoon in Kentucky. I didn't forget about it. I bought workbooks, printed out verb conjugation tables, and taped them inside kitchen cabinet doors. Found a podcast run by a retired teacher in New Mexico and listened to it on walks. I'd practice out loud in the car on the way to the hardware store, just talking to myself, narrating what I was doing in Spanish like some kind of one-man radio program. I never told anyone, not my kids, not my neighbors, not my buddy Pete from the old job. It was mine, a private thing in a life that had gotten very quiet. I wasn't hiding it for any strategic reason at first. I just liked having something that was only for me. That changed the morning Ned called. Ned Caldwell is my father's younger brother. He's 67 now, big man with a bigger laugh, the kind of guy who can walk into any room and within 10 minutes he's holding court in the corner, telling some story that everyone is leaning in to hear. After my dad passed 6 years ago, Ned naturally slid into the role of family anchor. He started handling the paperwork on the farm our grandfather had left, a 200-acre property outside Harrodsburg, Kentucky. Good land. Creek on the back edge, rolling hills, solid farmhouse that needed work but had good bones. Property like that in central Kentucky goes for around $280,000 these days. That farm was split equally between me and Ned in my grandfather's will. I knew that, had always known it, but the details, the filings, the tax records, the legal descriptions, all of that I'd left in Ned's hands because I trusted him. He'd been the one calling county offices, talking to the farm's occasional tenants, keeping the place on the books. I figured he was doing me a favor. I was the naive one in that arrangement. I understand that now. When I think back on Ned before all of this, I think about a Saturday in the summer, maybe 15 years ago. Carol was still healthy. My kids were teenagers.
Ned drove up from Louisville with a cooler full of ribs he'd smoked overnight, pulled into our driveway at noon like it was the most natural thing in the world.
We ate on the back porch all afternoon. He taught my son how to play poker with toothpicks. He and Carol laughed until she cried at some story he told about my dad getting his truck stuck in a ditch in 1987. That was Ned. That was the man I knew. When he called and suggested we drive down to the farm together, I was genuinely glad. Getting some interest on the property, he said. Thought we'd go down together, walk the land, see what we think. I said it sounded good. Told him I'd drive. The night before we left, I studied harder than usual. Real estate vocabulary, legal contract terms, phrases around deed transfers and title agreements. I still couldn't tell you why. Something just told me to pay attention. We drove down on a Friday morning. Ned was in good form the whole way, telling stories about my dad, complaining about Louisville traffic, asking about my kids. It felt easy, normal. I laughed at the right parts and asked follow-up questions and thought maybe I'd been spending too much time alone, that this was exactly what I needed. We got to the farm around noon. The land looked the same as it always had. The creek was running clear. The old fence lines needed work, but the hills were still green and wide. I stood on the porch for a minute just looking out at it and felt something I hadn't felt in a while, like I was somewhere I belonged. About an hour after we arrived, a truck came up the gravel drive. The man who got out was well-dressed, late 40s, moved with the practiced ease of someone who had done 100 of these property walkthroughs. He introduced himself in English as Hector Vega, a real estate broker out of Louisville. Ned shook his hand warmly. "This is my nephew Earl," he said. "He's a little hard of hearing, doesn't catch everything. I wasn't hard of hearing. I'd passed a physical 8 months earlier without a single flag. But I smiled and nodded like I hadn't quite caught what was said, which I suppose was the first small act of what was coming. Then Ned turned to Hector and switched to Spanish, and the bottom fell out. Ned said it the way you'd say something completely ordinary, relaxed, matter of fact. Like he was just clearing up a minor detail before the real conversation started. "My nephew doesn't need to be on the contract. He's getting older, doesn't really follow this kind of thing anymore. I handle everything for the family." Hector glanced over at me. "But he's a co-owner. His name is on the deed, on paper," Ned said. "Don't worry about that. Draw up the documents in my name and my daughter's. He'll sign where I tell him to sign. He won't know the difference." I set my coffee cup down on the windowsill. Slowly, I turned back toward the window and looked out at the creek. The water was moving easy over the rocks, same as it always had. Same creek my grandfather fished, same land my dad walked as a kid. I kept my face completely still. Inside, something that had been warm for a long time went cold and stayed that way. Ned and Hector kept talking. Hector walked him through the offer from the cash buyer. $265,000, about $15,000 under current market, but fast close. No contingencies, Ned agreed without a pause. They talked about the timeline, about the title transfer, about which parcels would be included. Ned mentioned his daughter Deb would handle the paperwork on their end. Professional, efficient, already set up. The whole conversation took maybe 20 minutes. I stood at that window and listened to every word. When it was done, Ned clapped Hector on the shoulder, walked him to his truck, and came back inside looking satisfied. "Good meeting," he said. Hector's solid. Guy knows what he's doing. He poured himself more coffee. "Few more weeks and we'll get the paperwork squared away. Just need your signature in a couple places, routine stuff." "Sure," I said. "Whatever you need." He looked at me for a second like he was checking something. Then he relaxed. "You want to walk the south fence line before we head back?" We walked the fence line. Ned pointed out a section that needed new posts. He talked about what the land might be worth in another 10 years if someone put the right crops in. He was easy, unhurried, completely comfortable. I walked beside him and answered when he asked something, and watched the long grass move in the wind and thought about the fact that this man had just told a real estate broker that I wouldn't know the difference. On the drive back to Cincinnati, I let Ned carry the conversation. He talked about his daughter Deb, about some property he was looking at in Lexington, about the drive being easier now that they'd finished the road work on 64. I watched the highway and said enough to keep it going, and did not say what I was actually thinking. What I was actually thinking was this: how long? Not whether it was real. I'd heard it myself, in a language he had no idea I understood, in plain, clear terms. That part I didn't need to work through. What I needed to understand was how far back it went, how much had already happened that I didn't know about, and what exactly I was sitting on top of. I got home after 9 that night, sat in the kitchen in the dark for a while without turning on any lights. Just sat there. Then I went to my desk and opened my laptop. I spent 2 hours searching. Property records, county filings, deed transfer histories for the Harrodsburg parcel and anything adjacent to it. I found most of what I was looking for on the Mercer County Assessor's website. It was all public record. I just never looked before. What I found was a sale from 7 years ago. A 12-acre parcel at the north edge of the farm, subdivided separately from the main property, transferred to an LLC. The manager of that LLC was listed as Deborah Caldwell. My name was not on the sale documents, but my name was on the original deed for that parcel. I stared at that screen for a long time. The next morning I made 2 phone calls before 8 a.m. The first was to a private investigator named Roy Slade. A friend from my old job had used him during a property dispute a few years back and said he was thorough and quiet about it. I left a message explaining the basics. He called back within the hour. I told him what I needed: a full financial history on any transactions involving the farm or any other Caldwell family property going back 10 years. Any sales, any transfers, any LLCs with family names attached. Roy said give him 2 weeks. The second call was to a lawyer named Nadine Holloway. I'd looked her up the night before. She specialized in property law and financial elder abuse. Her office was in Cincinnati, 20 minutes from my house. I got her assistant, explained that I had a property dispute involving a family member and possible forged documents. She had a cancellation that afternoon. I took it. Nadine Holloway was direct in a way I appreciated. She didn't soften anything. I laid out what I'd heard at the farm, what I'd found in the county records, and what I suspected about the 12-acre sale. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Mr. Caldwell, if the signatures on those older documents are forged, and if you have a recorded conversation establishing current intent to defraud, you have a strong civil case. Potentially criminal exposure for the other party as well." "I don't have a recording of the farm conversation," I said. "I didn't know to record it. We'll work with what we have. And going forward, you'll know to record." She told me to sit tight, keep acting normal around Ned, not to confront anyone yet, and not to sign anything under any circumstances. She'd review the county documents and wait for Roy's report. I drove home and stood in my kitchen and thought about Ned on that back porch 15 years ago, teaching my son to play cards, making Carol laugh until she had tears running down her face. Then I thought about what he'd said to Hector. He won't know the difference. I went to my desk and opened my Spanish workbook. Studied for 2 hours. I was on the subjunctive tense. It's the hardest part of the language, the tense you use for things uncertain, hypothetical, wished for. I had a feeling I was going to need it. For the next 6 weeks, I lived 2 separate lives. The first one was the one Ned could see. I answered his calls, laughed at his stories, said things like "sounds good" and "whatever you think is best" when he mentioned the paperwork was moving along. Twice he asked me to drive down to Louisville for dinner, and I went both times. Sat across from him at a restaurant he liked near the river, ate my food, listened to him talk. He was relaxed those evenings, generous, picked up the check both times without making a thing of it. The second life was the one happening at my desk after he hung up. Roy Slade was methodical. He checked in every few days with short updates, nothing dramatic, just progress notes. At the end of week 2, he sent over a full report. I printed it out and read it at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and read it again. The 12-acre sale from 7 years ago had cleared $41,000. The money moved from the closing into the LLC account, and then 2 weeks later into a personal savings account registered to Ned Caldwell. Nothing went into any shared account. Nothing came to me. There was more. Roy had pulled the actual closing documents from that sale through a records request. My signature appeared on 2 of them, a consent form and a co-owner release. I had never signed those papers. I had not known the sale was happening. I had not received a single dollar from it. I sat with that for a while. Then I scanned the documents and emailed them to Nadine. She called me the next morning. Her voice was the same as always, level and clear, no extra weight on it. "The signatures are inconsistent with your other known signatures on file. We'll want a forensic documents examiner to confirm, but my read is these were forged. That changes the nature of what we're dealing with." How much does it change it? It moves this from a civil dispute over intent to potential criminal fraud. Forgery is a felony in Kentucky. I asked her what she recommended. She said we had 2 options. We could report to law enforcement immediately and let the DA decide whether to pursue charges, or we could let the civil case build, document everything, and use the threat of criminal referral as leverage to ensure full recovery of assets. I thought about it for a day. Then I told her I wanted the civil route. I wanted the record straight, the money back, and my name on what was mine. I wasn't looking to put a 67-year-old man in a cell. I just wanted it to stop, and I wanted it documented. Nadine said she understood. She told me to keep acting normal for a few more weeks. Let Ned finalize the sale arrangements. Give him enough rope? I went back to my desk and kept studying. Around week 4, Ned called to say he had a signing date. A title company in Louisville, a Tuesday afternoon. "Just bring your ID," he said. "Deb will have everything ready. Shouldn't take more than an hour." I told him I'd be there. That night, I sat in the backyard for a long time, not thinking about strategy, not running through the plan, just sitting. There was a good stretch of weather that week, warm for October, the kind of evenings where the light goes late and the neighborhood gets quiet in a gradual way. I thought about Carol. She would have known something was wrong before I did. She had a way of reading a room, reading a person, that I never had. She would have caught something in Ned's voice months before that afternoon at the farm and would have come to me with her arms crossed, saying, "I think something's off with your uncle," and I would have told her she was imagining things. I missed her in a very specific way that night. The day before the signing, I drove to Nadine's office. We went through everything one more time. She had organized the documents into a single folder. Roy's report, the forged signature analysis from the examiner she'd hired, the financial records showing the $41,000 transfer, and a printed transcript I'd made of the conversation at the farm, translated from Spanish into English, with a note at the top explaining the circumstances under which I had heard it and my qualifications to understand what was said. Nadine had also drafted a formal objection to the sale, ready to file with the title company the moment I gave her the word. "You understand what happens tomorrow," she said. "It wasn't really a question. Ned finds out I understood everything," I said, "and that I've been building a case for 6 weeks." She nodded. "Are you ready for that?" I thought about the porch, the ribs, the card game, Carol laughing. I thought about him standing at that kitchen window in Harrodsburg, telling Hector that I wouldn't know the difference. "Yes," I said. I drove back to Cincinnati and cooked dinner and watched some TV and went to bed at a reasonable hour. In the morning, I put on a decent shirt, poured coffee into a travel mug, and got in the car. The title company was in a low office building near the river in Louisville. Glass front, a small parking lot. I arrived 15 minutes early and sat in my car for a bit, watching the entrance. Ned's truck was already there. Deb's sedan was parked next to it. Hector Vega's car was at the far end of the lot. I called Nadine. She picked up on the first ring. "I'm 2 minutes out," she said. I watched her pull in, watched her get out of her car with her briefcase, smooth and unhurried. She walked across the lot and we went in together. The receptionist looked up when we came through the door. I gave her my name. She checked her list and said they were already in the conference room, second door on the left. I walked down the hall and opened the door. Ned was at the head of the table. Deb sat to his left with a pen in her hand and a stack of papers in front of her. Hector Vega was across from her, jacket on, briefcase closed, ready to move. The title company representative sat at the far end with a folder open in front of him. When Ned saw me walk in with Nadine, something shifted in his face. Not panic, more like a man who has just noticed the weather changed while he wasn't watching. "Earl," he said. "Who's this?" "My attorney," I said. "Nadine Holloway." Nadine set her folder on the table without a word. She slid copies to Hector and to the title rep. Roy's report, the forged signature analysis, the financial records from the 12-acre sale, the translated transcript of the conversation at the farm dated and signed. Ned looked at the papers. Then he looked at me. I pulled out my chair and sat down across from him. Then I looked at Hector and spoke in Spanish. "The property cannot be sold today. I am the legal co-owner and I am formally objecting to this transaction. My attorney is filing the objection with the title company as of this moment." The room went completely quiet. Hector stared at me for a long second. Then he closed his briefcase. He looked at Ned once, a short, flat look, the kind a professional gives when he's deciding how far he wants to be from a problem. Then he stood up, nodded once at Nadine, and walked out without a word. He wasn't going to touch a sale with forgery attached to it, and we both knew it. The title rep closed his folder. "We'll need to suspend this closing," he said quietly, and followed Hector out. Deb put her pen down. She was staring at the table. It was just the four of us. Ned tried first. He said it was all a misunderstanding, that he was protecting family assets, that he had been managing things for years, and Earl had never complained, that this was being blown completely out of proportion. His voice was steady, but his hands were flat on the table in a way that looked deliberate, like he was holding them there. I let him finish. "Ned," I said, "I have the forged signatures. I have Roy's full financial report on the 12-acre sale from 7 years ago. I have a transcript of what you said to Hector at the farm. I understood every word of that conversation in real time." He went still. "Nadine is filing the civil suit this week. The forgery findings go to the DA's office as a separate referral. What happens after that is not up to me." Deb made a small sound, not quite a word. She was still looking at the table. Ned looked at me for a long moment. Something moved across his face that I didn't have a name for. Not remorse exactly. More like a man realizing a door he thought was open had been closed for some time. I stood up. "We're done here," I said. "The civil case ran 8 months." Ned's attorney came back twice with settlement offers. The first was an offer to return the $41,000 from the old sale and call it even. Nadine said no. The second added a payment for legal costs and a written acknowledgement of the irregularities in the deed documents. Nadine said no again. We went to judgment. Ned was ordered to repay $41,000 with interest, cover my legal costs, and relinquish any claim to sole management of the remaining family property. My name was reaffirmed as co-owner on everything. The DA reviewed the forgery referral and declined to prosecute given Ned's age and the civil judgment already in place. I didn't fight that call. I had what I needed. The family found out. You can't keep something like that quiet in a family, and I didn't try to. Ned's reputation among the people who knew him did not survive the specifics. I kept the farm. First weekend, I drove back down alone. I walked every fence line from the north edge to the creek. Took most of a Saturday. The land was the same as it had always been. Same hills, same water, moving over the same rocks. My grandfather cleared those fields by hand. My dad fished that creek every summer of his life. Ned had come within a signature of taking it from me without me ever knowing it happened. I started going down on weekends, fixed the farmhouse roof, cleared the overgrown fence line on the south side, took my time with it. Back in Cincinnati, I started a free Spanish conversation class at the branch library on Tuesday evenings. Small group, mostly retirees, low-key, comfortable. Good people. That's where I met Faye Merritt. 56 years old, recently retired from 22 years teaching middle school English. Silver hair, quick laugh, the kind of person who asks a real question and then actually listens to the answer. She'd been trying to learn Spanish for 3 years and kept stalling out on the subjunctive. We started getting coffee after class, then dinner. Then long walks along the Ohio riverfront on Sunday afternoons when the weather allowed. We're taking it slow. That's the right speed for where we both are. About 8 months after the judgment, I got a letter from Deb, handwritten, 3 pages. She said she had told herself it was just paperwork, just her father handling things the way he always had, that it wasn't her place to question it. She said she knew now that was a lie she had told herself because it was easier. She wasn't asking me to forgive her. She just wanted me to know she understood what she had been part of. I read it twice, put it in a drawer. Haven't responded yet. Maybe I will. I haven't decided. As for Ned, I haven't spoken to him since that afternoon in Louisville. I don't know that I will. I'm 58 years old. I have a farm in Kentucky and a bookshelf I built myself and a Tuesday night Spanish class and Faye coming over for dinner on Fridays. I started Portuguese last month. Might try Italian after that. Turns out I'm decent with languages. Something I never knew because I never tried. If any part of this story felt familiar to you, I want to say something directly. You are not invisible. The fact that you stayed quiet, stayed reasonable, stayed the one who kept things together while someone close to you was counting on you not to look too carefully, that is not weakness. That is what a man does when he still believes in the people around him. But there comes a point where believing in someone and protecting yourself are not the same thing. And when that point arrives, you are allowed to act. You are allowed to get a lawyer, document everything, and walk into that room and say, I understood every word. It is never too late to learn something new. And sometimes the thing you pick up quietly, just to fill the hours, turns out to be exactly what saves you. If this story meant something to you, leave a comment and tell me where you're watching from. I'd like to know. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, send it to them. That's how these stories find the people who need them.